Today we're making this Macrame Snowman Christmas ornament. Hi friends! Make sure you check out the description box for the full list of supplies. Alright, now let's get started. On your small 12-inch butcher's twine, we're going to attach 4 of our cords using a lark's head knot. Fold your cord in half, with the loop end placed behind your butcher's twine, then thread your long tail ends through that loop. That is how you tie a lark's head knot. Attach 3 more cords onto your butcher's twine in the same way. With the first and last cords, we're going to tie what I like to call a gathering square knot. Place your first cord across the center cords. Then with your last cord, you want to place it behind and through the loop of your left. Cinch it up all the way to the top. Then take your last cord and place it over the centers. Then take your first cord and place it behind all your center cords and then up through the loop of your right. Cinch up your slack all the way up to the top. And this is what I like to call a gathering square knot. Now we're going to increase our cords on the first 2 and last 2 cords. Grab another 45-inch strand of rope, fold it in half to find the center. Then place that center behind your first 2 sets of cords. We're going to tie what I like to call a floating square knot. And don't worry, it is pretty much the same way you tie a regular square knot, only our 2 outside working cords are not already attached. Because it's not attached, that means we can slide it all the way up and down on our anchor cord, which is why I like to call it a floating square knot. It floats up and down on your cords. Once you tied your floating square knot, slide it all the way up to the top. With the next set of 4 cords, we're going to tie just a regular square knot. With the last set of 2 cords, we're going to attach another floating square knot. For the next row, skip the first 2 and last 2 cords and tie just 2 regular square knots in the center. For the next row, we're going to grab the first and last cord and tie another gathering square knot. This gathering square knot is a little bit trickier than the first one because we added more cords in the center. Try to keep the center cords in line as best as you can, but if they do cross over a little bit, don't worry about it. You're not really going to notice in the end. Next, we're going to tie 3 regular square knots. For this row, we're going to increase again, so we're going to add 2 floating square knots on opposite ends and then 2 regular square knots in the center. Alright, now we're going to attach arms on the first and last cord. With a 30-inch strand of brown rope, you want to fold it in half to find the center, then place the center loop behind your first cord, and what we're going to do is attach it onto our white cord using a lark's head knot. Make sure this cord is tight and slide it all the way up to the top. Repeat to the other side of your snowman. We're going to ignore those brown cords and continue tying the bottom of our snowman. So skip the first 2 and last 2 cords and tie 3 regular square knots in the center. Bring back down those cords you skipped and tie 4 square knots. Skip the first 2 and last 2 cords again and tie 3 square knots. For the next row, we're going to tie 4 square knots all the way across. Now we're going to decrease, so skip the first 2 and last 2 cords and tie 3 square knots in the middle. Decrease again by skipping the first 2 and last 2 cords again and tying just 2 square knots in the very middle. And that completes the bottom of our snowman. Now we're going to work on his arms. Turn your snowman over to the side and grab the very first strand of brown cord. Pull that strand over to the right hand side and then make a loop on the right. Wrap the tail end around and through the loop and slide it all the way up to the top. Then repeat one more time, so make a loop on your right, wrap your long tail end around and through the loop. Next, take the same strand and place it back over to the left hand side and then make a loop on your left this time. Wrap your long tail end around and through the loop, cinch it up to the top, and repeat one more time. This is called an alternating vertical double half hitch pattern. We're going to repeat the same process all over again. So place your strand over to the right, make a loop on your right, wrap your long tail end around and through the loop, and repeat. Then drag your cord over to the left, make a loop on your left, wrap your tail end around and through the loop, and repeat. This was a total of 4 alternating vertical double half hitch knots. Next, unpin your snowman, turn him over to the other side, and repeat the whole process all over again. Alright, let's go ahead and make the hanger. Grab both ends of your butcher's twine and tie an overhand knot. Make sure your knot is centered, then snip off the excess length. Now we're going to make the top of his head more rounded, so grab your hot glue gun and add just a tiny dab of hot glue right on top of your square knot on the side, and then squeeze the ends together. Repeat on the other side. Snip off the ends of your brown cord, and you could leave the ends just like this, but I'm going to go ahead and tack it down with some hot glue. I feel like leaving the ends makes it look more stick-like, but I wanted to make sure that my knots don't come undone. It's totally up to you if you leave it or you glue it. Next, we're going to have a little bit of a funny problem. Snip off your white ends and glue them towards the back. And you're going to find that your snowman has a little bit of a cheeky problem. Now, to rectify this problem, we're going to glue the 2 square knots together. Now, if this was a happy accident for you, please tag me on Instagram. I would love to see your snowman creations. Alright, so now that my problem is rectified, we're going to give him a scarf. Now, you could just use some ribbon for this and not have to go through the trouble of tying all these square knots. However, I do like macrames, so I'm going to go ahead and tie the square knots. Pin your 2 cords down onto your board, and you want the 2 center cords shorter than the 2 outside cords. Then with the 2 outside cords, we're going to tie a whole bunch of square knots. Now I tied 20 square knots in total, but you can do more or less depending on the length of scarf that you want. And I like mine kind of angled over to the right so that it's kind of like a windswept motion. You could totally make the scarf longer so that it wraps around properly. Snip off the excess length, leaving a little bit of a tail so that you can melt it with your lighter. Then attach your scarf onto your snowman with a little bit of hot glue. Now, if you've been following along with my tutorials, you should have some excess scrap pieces from our previous snowman. I'm going to use those scraps for his buttons and his eyes, but if you don't have those scrap pieces, then all you need is about a 10-inch strand of black cord. You can also use yarn instead if you wish. With that scrap piece, I'm tying 2 double overhand knots for the buttons and 2 single overhand knots for his eyes. I suppose you could use buttons or beads instead as well. All you need is a little dab of hot glue to attach his eyes and his buttons. Now for his nose, all you need is a tiny scrap piece of orange rope. To get that carrot shape, I add just a smidge of hot glue at the tip and I pinch it so that it forms a point. Then I fan out the other end and then attach it onto the snowman with a little bit of hot glue. For mine, I opted not to add a mouth, but of course you can totally add one if you wish. If you enjoyed my cheeky little snowman, please do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you haven't checked out my previous snowman ornament, click the link on the screen now, and I'll see you over there.